Good afternoon and welcome everyone to today's CFOLC program, Remote Strong, Managing and Empowering Your Remote Team. My name is Stacy Hall and I'm the Regional Director for California for the CFO Leadership Council. And I also have Debbie Dunn, Marketing Director, helping me facilitate the program. We hope everyone is doing well and staying safe. We thank you for your continued membership and partnership within our tight-knit finance executive community. Before we get started, we just have a few housekeeping things we want to point out. Your lines are muted to avoid distractions. However, we certainly encourage your questions and comments throughout today's discussion. So please feel free to type them in the question box and we'll get them answered as soon as we can. If you are a member of the CFOLC, you will receive 1.8 CPEs for today's webcast, just as you would in the live event. To receive credit, you must be a current member and answer at least 5 of the 6 polling questions. We will interrupt the discussion to bring those to you and give you a chance to answer. In order to answer the polling questions, you must be logged in to today's session. If you've dialed in and you want to receive CPE, please hang up and use the direct link provided to you at registration. We will share some information on how to become a member at the end of the webcast. The good news, if you join today, you will qualify for CPE for today's session. As we do with our live events, we want to start today with a little shout out to our sponsors who make this all possible. You can find and connect with all our sponsors and steering committee members on our CFOLC.com page under San Diego. Please reach out, as we are all about making connections. It's amazing the resources and connections both our sponsors and our steering committee members can make for you. First of all, I just want to say thank you to Bank America. Every CFO knows the importance of having a trusted financial services partner. I can't say enough good things about our steering committee representatives, Dan Bruckart, Ricardo Maciato, Jim Cordes. They are excellent advisors. Oracle NetSuite, Paul DeRocher is San Diego's go-to person for NetSuite. Throughout the years, Paul has learned CFO's needs for their businesses, big and small, in regards to cloud accounting solutions. Hughes Marino, David Marino, and Shane Poppin are an invaluable real estate resource. They specialize in tenant representation for CFOLC members. I wanted to mention they are having an event with Mike Robbins next Wednesday on high-performing teams, which would probably be a good follow-up to our discussion today. And they are letting our members attend for free. So look for an email later this afternoon from Debbie on that. KPMG, we missed meeting in their offices. Hopefully we'll get back to that. Whether it's figuring out the new tax changes or guiding you through an audit, KPMG can help you through it. Jerry Schmidt and Melody Stutzman are our steering committee representatives. Safeguard Global, don't go it alone internationally. Safeguard Global can provide you with PEO solutions to help you grow faster and be better equipped for business changes. Michael Crumley has some great resources during this time of uncertainty to help you take action. Seva Financial Solutions, steering committee member Austin Kakar knows what's expected of today's CFOs. Originally coming from an accounting background, he can tell members how to prepare for their next advancement, plan for staffing changes as well. And then last but not least, Hub. There's no better time than now for CF members to delve into risk and liability solutions with insurance partner Hub. Maggie Osborne and Daniel Caban are our steering committee representatives. Maggie is a rock star and she put together an amazing panel today. I'm so thankful for her and I will let her take it away at this point, but I want to tell you, if you don't know Maggie, make sure you know Maggie. I think she knows everyone in San Diego and she is such a great connector. So with that, Maggie, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thanks so much, Stacy, and welcome to everybody for dialing in. I'm sure you, like me, on March 13th, thought life was going to proceed pretty much as normal and as we knew it, and literally in a matter of what felt like a couple of hours, I think probably a couple of days, life changed significantly for all of us. And you know, everything we used to know, I think, has been redefined, including work has been redefined, fun has been redefined, going out has certainly been redefined, and I think our definition of friends and family has been redefined as well. So we thought this was a really good opportunity to pull some leading HR and finance and executive coach resources together to talk about how San Diego companies are dealing with the new world that we're all living and dealing in, and what they are doing to help support their employees, what they're doing to help support productivity, how the companies are adjusting, how employees are adjusting, etc. So I am thrilled to introduce a fabulous panel of professionals. And I'm just going to give names and company names first, and then I'm going to ask each of them to just talk briefly about their organization, their employees, and what they've seen as two positives in their organization or with their employees that they've realized as a result of the new remote work environment. So I'm going to introduce everybody by name, and then I'll come back around. So Celeste Blodgett with ESET, Lisa D'Aquisto with Ashford University, Ryan Gray with Goal Investment Group, Jennifer Jung with Zovio, and Carl Robinson with Advanced Leadership Consulting. So Celeste, why don't we come back and start with you? Brief introduction, yourself, the organization, and the two positives that ESET has recognized.
Excellent. Well, I'm Celeste, and I oversee the HR Learning and Development and Knowledge-Based Teams for ESET, which is an internet security company located downtown in San Diego. However, we have headquarters in Bratislava, Slovakia. So we're about a 2,000 person operation. And two of the positives that our organization has found since the result of remote work is that, well, first of all, that we can do it. On all of our surveys, we've been requested much more flexibility with our workforce, and we see that we can do it pretty seamlessly. So let's keep going and doing that moving forward. And the second positive is that we're actually able to hire a little bit more with diversity, different time zones, and specialized skill sets across the country. So that's really opened up a lot of opportunity for us. So those are our positives for ESET.
Great, Celeste, thank you. Lisa?
Yeah, good afternoon. My name is Lisa D'Aquisto, and I'm the head of compensation and benefits at Ashford University. At Ashford University, we are an online higher ed organization headquartered in San Diego, California. We have about 3,000 employees. Now, in all fairness, we did have a pretty robust remote workforce pre-COVID, but not everybody. Like Celeste, I think the trust of our organization leadership all the way to the president and CEO that our employees can do it at all levels. Even the entry level hourly employee can be trusted with the data, that they will still clock in and out for their meal period, and that they are getting the work done and doing a fantastic job. So we've seen an increase in productivity, but we've also seen a decrease in absenteeism and presenteeism in the sense that our engagement has increased as a result, and less sick time and less leave of absences as well. So seeing the same things.
Thanks so much, Lisa. Ryan, how about at Goal Investment Group?
Hi, my name is Ryan Gray. I'm the Chief Financial Officer at Goal Investment Group. At Goal, we're an asset management company focused on the consumer finance fintech industry. Our subsidiary companies focus on servicing and management of consumer portfolios and securitizations, and our originating entities originate new consumer loans. At Goal, I think the number one thing that was a positive for the organization was we took our good communication style and turned it into a great communication style. We immediately went into weekly all companies meetings, and that lasted for a number of months until we adapted it into more of the monthly cadence on the all companies, and then multiple times during the month for the individual subsidiary company meetings. So the communication channel from the parent company down through the subsidiary organizations is the right touch points now and the right frequency where we're getting a lot of engagement. So that's been fantastic. The other positive is we were fortunate to have a good business continuity program in place. So going remote was easy. Learning to trust everyone. We expected we could trust everyone to work effectively, and it was fantastic. We had high levels of productivity starting on day one. So understanding that we can have the workforce work remote immediately and be proactive and support our clients and customers immediately was a great thing to be able to see and overcome.
Great, thanks, Ryan. Jennifer, over to you.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Jung, Senior Director of Benefits for Zovio. Currently, Zovio owns Ashford University, but we'll be selling them off or spinning off or whatever phrase you want to use in December, beginning of December. So Ashford will stand alone and Zovio will become an ed tech services provider where we can provide online services to multiple universities, including Ashford University, which will be UAGC. A couple of positives that we have seen likely, so we were remote or hybrid already prior to this for all of our employees except for our student facing. So our employees that kind of enroll students and whatnot, their leadership wasn't quite ready to embrace the hybrid approach. So one big positive was that not only did they show that they could do this, they have done it very well. So we have seen a huge increase in productivity since they've been at home. And we attribute a lot of that to commute. So our headquarters are now in Chandler, Arizona, but we have a lot of employees that travel. If anyone is familiar with the Phoenix area, you can live hours away from and still be considered greater Phoenix area. And so we have a lot of employees whose commutes is an hour to an hour and a half plus each way. Basically zero no-shows, zero late shows, and a lot of increased productivity and a big increase in engagement. And the number one comment has been that they can come to work in their pajamas.
Always a bonus.
Right.
Thanks, Jen.
And they can sleep in.
And they can sleep
yes,
in.
Yes,
exactly. More time to sleep, less time in the car. Both very good things for health. We also invited Carl Robinson, an executive coach, to join the panel today because Carl just has such a unique perspective given he works with and coaches and speaks with so many different executives in companies of all sizes and across all industries. I'm actually going to ask Carl to kind of introduce himself, certainly, but then answer the question a little bit differently in that I'd really like to hear what he's hearing from the executives he's coaching and what the issues are that they and their families are facing or struggling with.
Okay. Well, thank you, Maggie, and welcome everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. As she said, I'm a consulting psychologist and I've been working with executives for over 30 years, and I'm very fortunate to have a broad-based view of this type of the executive suite. You know, during this particular time, I was going to say, for me personally, my business, I'm a person of one, business of one, and I've been operating virtually almost my whole career. So this has been a no-brainer for me. But one of the benefits, though, for my clients is they started to realize, oh, we can operate a little bit more flexibly. And what I've been hearing from most of the C-level execs is a couple things. One is that they feel like they're being much more efficient with their time, and their employees are much more efficient with their time. And kind of the noise of office politics is softening because people aren't interacting quite as much and bugging people as much. So I can't tell you how many times I've heard that. Do you want me to address now or a little later some of the mental health issues that are coming up?
Carl, why don't you go ahead and mention those? Okay,
good. You know, there's been quite a bit of research done just recently on what's going on in the U.S. as a result of the pandemic. And one of the key things, the Kaiser Family Foundation just did a big study, and they've noticed that the incidence of anxiety and depression are up to 40% of the population. That's a threefold increase from pre-COVID times. Can you imagine that? 40% of the population is suffering from anxiety and depression because of being locked up. And then an interesting study recently done by Blind, which is an anonymous workplace community app where they surveyed 3,000 workers from 40 companies, and including some of the big tech giants. And they found out that, for example, Amazon workers surveyed are 74% more burned out working from home. Microsoft employees, 76% more burned out. So one of the side effects here is that people are working even harder. So Maggie mentioned earlier about getting an extra hour because you're not commuting. Well, what we're finding out is that people aren't commuting, they're working. So the 8-hour day is now a 10-hour day. And another interesting study that was just done by Microsoft of 2,000 workers found that brainwave activity associated with overwork and stress is significantly higher in video meetings like we're doing right now. And due to high levels of sustained concentration, fatigue begins to set in after 30 or 40 minutes into a meeting. And people are filling their days with meetings nonstop. All I hear about is Zoom fatigue. So there's a number of things that are happening that aren't great. And I know our other panelists are going to talk about things we're doing to kind of offset that. That's it, Maggie.
Great, Carl. Thank you.
Yep.
Maybe we should jump in and do a quick poll. Do you think, Maggie? Get our first.
I think we should.
Okay. All right. We will launch that, and I'll read it to you, for those on the phone. So our first question is, what percentage of your workforce was working remotely pre-COVID, so before COVID? Was it none, less than 25%, less than 50%, or more than 50%? So what percentage was working remotely before COVID hit us? So that's what we want to look at first to see how that compares. We'll give it a few more seconds. Looks like we have almost 70%. Okay, so here's what we, 30% had no one remotely before COVID, 40% had less than 25%, and then 20% had less than 50%, and more than 50% was 10%.
Great. Very, very interesting numbers. And now everybody's at basically 90%, I think, if not higher. So one of the first questions that I wanted to pose to the panel is, what is the biggest issue that caught you, the organization, and your employees off guard? And how have you responded or adjusted to that? And Celeste, why don't we start with you, and I'll have each of the panelists answer these because I think the answers are very different.
Sure. Sure. So just to kind of give an overview, we're not essential workers. So we have literally 100% of people working from home. That's first to know. And so we even got our facility and our receptionists doing their role from home. They're doing odds and ends and different things. So really having to come up with, how to do their job remote, which was being really, really creative because we did not lay off or do a furlough for any of our employees. So that's a great thing. But we did not really have a roadmap, as this is the first, pandemic that I believe any of us have experienced in our lifetime. So there wasn't a roadmap. And I just remember all hands on deck with the executive team and everyone trying to figure out, what do we do? How do we get the employees out? Do we get them all out today? Do we do a few today, a few tomorrow? Because we were not equipped to have everybody set up with all of their equipment. So for that month of March, I would say that I think I had 400 tickets. It was 400 or more tickets from employees requesting, if we didn't have enough laptops, we were doing VPN stations. We were, making sure some people didn't have the right cord. So I was, sending things from Amazon, and all of my team was all hands on deck. So we really were not fully prepared, just to exit immediately. And then we had people that were terrified because they had an autoimmune condition or they were living with a parent who was suffering. So we had to literally do a prioritization and say, okay, we had to send out a survey and privately, who needed to be out first and why. You had home, you were a parent with kids. And so once we did that, okay, these people leave, let's get their equipment first. And it was really juggling. And I would say I was very impressed with not only the executive team, but those that were in operational mode. We had like systems going. I mean, I'm telling you, I saw the most organized group of individuals working all to help each other. And it was kind of, that saying, we're all in it together. So we were learning, each day. And what I'll lastly say is that the HR community was a major resource. We were all meeting, sending notes. How are you doing this? How are you, handling A, B, C, D, E, F, G? And so, we weren't reinventing the wheel, we were sharing. And that was a great plan. But again, no one expected this. So we as a company were not fully planned, but we did it pretty seamlessly. I was, like I said, very impressed at the collaborative partnerships.
Thanks, Celeste.
Sure thing.
Ryan, how about at Goal?
I would say some of the biggest challenges that we came across was really related to our families, primarily on childcare for non-school age kids and then school-aged learners who are then put into a remote setting immediately, followed by those without families as well that had just challenges of being alone. So I think that was the biggest challenge that we had to kind of overcome was how could we support our families the right way. We had some single mothers, we had some families with dual earners, and how can we be as flexible as possible for them to be effective as a family unit, as well as effective at work when they can be effective at work. And so I think flexibility was the thing that we needed to adapt really quickly to ensure that we could try to adapt to the needs of the families and the people that were tied, having challenges with childcare and school-age learning kids.
Thanks, Ryan. Lisa, what were you guys most caught off guard with at Ashford?
Yeah, like I was saying earlier, we have a large remote population already, or they're working hybrid schedules, meaning they're already working 1 or 2 days at home pre-COVID. For us to flip to 100% work from home was actually fairly easy for us to do. But like Ryan, we had the unexpected challenges of the working parents, right? The school-age children. And for us, the solution was being more flexible. They may work an 8-hour day, but that 8 hours might be spanned over 10 or even 12 hours, allowing them to log in at 6 in the morning until 9 at night, or 6 in the morning until 9 in the morning, get a good solid 3 hours in, but then they're offline for 2 or 3 hours while they're assisting their kid with their online learning, right? So for us, it was flexibility. And then we did immediately start looking at vendors to support our working parents. With our population, again, doing an assessment of just our specific employees and what we were hearing from them. With us being an online university, our parents and our working employees were concerned about their kiddos' education, right? And occupying their kiddos in a safe environment. So we looked at some vendors to support that with online tutoring and then online recesses for the kids. So the kiddos could have some time and mom and dad could be working. So.
And Lisa, for the people who are joining us who might have interest in providing similar services for their employees, are you comfortable sharing the names of those resources?
Absolutely. So the tutoring, online tutoring, is called TutorMe. That is the vendor that we use. They support ages, or I should say from kindergarten all the way through grad school. One of the reasons we picked TutorMe is there was no administrative cost to the service. $1 went straight to the employee. We did land on 10 hours of tutoring, and they get a tutor instantaneously within 30 seconds. Mom and dad can immediately get a tutor to help their child right then and there. And then the second vendor we use is called OutSchool. And OutSchool has, 10,000 plus different activities. And that was out of demand of kind of a virtual babysitter or virtual recess where the employee's child is occupied in a safe environment. They're also learning, but they're getting that human connection with peers their age. So if you have a 5-year-old, they're doing, arts and crafts virtually online. But OutSchool also has academic micro lessons. And so if you're feeling like your child is falling behind with the current public school environment, they could supplement their child's education with micro lessons with OutSchool. And we did look at some other vendors. Again, OutSchool, there was no admin cost, so every dollar went directly to the employee. We did look at some other vendors and just felt that they weren't the right fit, and they were much more costly for the return on the investment. So that's where we landed on our two. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Lisa. Jen, how about Xovio?
So I think the biggest thing that caught us off guard was how long this was going to last. Like when we first said, okay, we're going to go full-time remote, we thought it was going to be for a month. So we didn't really plan like ergonomically or, workstation setup or anything like that. It was just take your laptop and go. It's only for a month. You're going to be back in the office. Now here we are 8 months later, still working from home. And now, we have and we've hired about 500 people during the pandemic. So that has been a challenge in and of itself. A lot of our demographics are fresh out of college, so younger students really, who have roommates or they have a small apartment. They don't have really a dedicated workspace or a desk. They're sitting on their couch hunched over, or they're sitting at a dining room table. They have roommates in the background. So that has been kind of a challenge to deal with. So we had to, about midway through this, start telling them they could come in and grab their ergonomic equipment, because all of our workstations in the office are 100% ergonomic. So we allowed them to take home their chairs and their equipment if they want to, with the caveat that they had to bring them back. They would only get one per employee. So wherever they were, that equipment had to be. So that was one of our bigger challenges. And then our other one was honestly kind of falling in line with what Carl said, that we're seeing that exactly, is mental well-being. We have had probably our largest number of employees going on leave from mental health than we've ever had. And, I feel for these people. I feel for these employees. I've seen it with my kids personally. Just that lack of social interaction is really killing them. Not being able to play sports in California is really impacting them. So I get it. And I don't know that anyone has like the magical solution at this point in time.
Agreed. I think Celeste said it best, right? This is the first pandemic any of us has dealt with. And so it's learning by doing and on-the-job training for sure. So I'd like to talk about other creative ways you're supporting your employees in any of their needs. And Ryan, I was particularly impressed by something pretty cool and unusual that Goal is doing. Will you talk a little bit about the community fund and how that works at Goal?
Yeah, we knew that we needed to support our employees a little bit further. So it was a twofold approach. We provided $400 per employee that we were putting in reserves to be used. Half of it was going to be solely on wellness. Do whatever you want with it. Buy a Peloton. It's not going to cover that cost, but maybe it buys some of your monthly gym allowance or a new pair of shoes. Something on a wellness related. That was no questions. You got that. The other $200 was put into a fund that said, if you need it, opt in. If you don't need it, opt out. And here's what we want you to use it for. We want you to use it for other wellness type of activities, or mental wellness activities, or childcare, or things that you need. What was fantastic about it was we didn't know how it was going to get received and responded. And we had 70% of the people opt out. They're like, I don't need that extra $200. but I know who does. And some people suggested, even though we weren't taking names, we wanted to keep everything private. They're like, no, there's other people that need the funds more than me. And then of the 30% that opted in, they had a choice to just take the $200 to help defray a cost of a tutoring system or a tutor or childcare, or they could ask for more. And so of the half the people that opted in, they chose only the $200, and the other half asked for a little bit more. And now that we have this fund that's going to be kind of hopefully perpetual in nature, that will fund it periodically and continue to use that in the future, where human resources is the one that's allocating the dollars that come in through the opt-out portion. And we've the response has been fantastic. We've had a couple situations where we had an employee that came down with cancer, and immediately the outpouring of love, like, I want to opt out and I want it to benefit perhaps this employee. Now, the HR will go through that process to make sure we do it most appropriately. But I think it's going to become a fabric of who we are on a going forward basis, to do what it's designed to do, is to be a community within your organization and develop a little bit deeper bonds within and understand the needs of your employees. And we've had a few people that literally have shown up very emotional, saying, I'm not sure how we were going to take care of this or address this need for my child. This is definitely going to help get that taken care of over the course of the next period of time while we need to have that extra assistance.
And boy, talk about ways to build employee loyalty and dedication, right? Just a whole new opportunity to do that. Jen, I know at Zovio, you guys are doing a lot around helping support your employees, particularly with some of the mental health issues that have arisen. Do you want to talk a little bit about what you're doing there?
Maggie, can we jump in and do just a quick poll real quick? There's and then we can get her answer. We're gonna this one is a follow-up to what % of your workforce is working remotely currently. So that's a follow-up to our last question. Is it more than 25%, more than 50%, or more than 75%, or 100% are working remotely? So this is now. So this goes up against what we were talking before. So I want to launch this one, and then we're going to launch one more that actually centers around what Ryan was just talking about, and then we can jump back to Celeste. So it looks like on this one, 46% are at 100% working remotely now, 31% at more than 75%, and then more than 25% is at 23%. So that's interesting comparison. And then I just want to jump and throw in this other question that relates to what Ryan was talking about. And this is, are you providing essential worker stipends? So yes or no. So just curious, based on Ryan's discussion, who all is doing that. So we'll give it a few more seconds. Let's see. Looks like, go ahead and launch. So only 27% are doing essential worker stipends, and then 73% no. So just some interesting pieces. Now I'll turn it back to you, Celeste.
Actually, I think it was Jen Jung that was going to answer that, and then Celeste will chime in as well.
Nope, you're good. You're good. Yeah, so to try and address the mental health, we do have a dedicated wellness coach who's actually, she's a Cigna employee, but she's dedicated solely to Zovio. So she's an on-site wellness coach. So she has tailored her services to assist with some of the stuff that's come up during this pandemic. We do monthly EAP wellness webinars, and we have a COVID intranet page where, I mean, probably more material than anyone could ever need, but getting employees to, go to that site was a challenge. So we've had to get a little bit creative in how we communicate to our employees, email overload. So we need to stop kind of doing that. So we've done some Zoom screen takeovers. We've done laptop, when you first log into your laptop, that first page that you see, we've taken over that with some information, so employees have to read it in order to log into their laptop. A lot of, hotspot postings. We made everybody's main page the hotspot, or intranet hotspot. Our intranet is called Hotspot, so the hotspot page is their main page for everybody. So trying to really get the information out to employees. Our Delia, our wellness coach, is busier now than she's ever been, but it's good. We do have an on-site health and wellness clinic in Chandler as well, and our nurse practitioner has been just absolutely amazing and very flexible in how she provides services, because obviously our employees are still remote, although some are starting to come back now, but she's been very flexible, switched to telemedicine. So she's been a great partner as well, and helping us partner with counselors in and around the surrounding areas of all of our locations. Because part of the problem was that our employees couldn't get in to see anybody. Like, if they would call for an EAP counselor, it would be months before they could see somebody. So that was one of our bigger challenges too, in trying to set up a network just specific for us.
Celeste, I know ESET had some of the same struggles. Talk a little bit about what you guys did kind of out of the box to support your employees.
Yeah. So first of all, wellness is huge at ESET. In fact, Maggie and I have been on a panel before for the healthiest employers in San Diego, and we were up a few times as finalists and one time a winner. So we're always focused around the physical, the mental, the spiritual, the emotional being of our employees. And we really strategically do monthly activities with our employees. So we're doing things like on Tuesdays and Thursdays, we do breathing exercise meditation for those employees that want to jump in on that. We've increased our EAP sessions by we worked with HealthJoy, and basically our other EAP provider, which, most of the times you roll out to your, onboarding with your new employees and all your employees, they usually give you 3 sessions, and it's just not enough right now. So we wanted to explore more, and HealthJoy offers either 2, 4, 6, or 8, and the most amount for a 200 company is about a $4,000 spend. And it's immediate, it's fast, they work with you, they get you into appointments, there's, consultation. So we literally just implemented that last month, because like the other ladies have said, and actually the gentleman here as well, is we've seen an increased, increase in depression, anxiety, worrying about their kids. As far as doing programs for them, we also do the flexibility. And I wanted to add too, for the stipend, one of the creative things we did was with ergonomic equipment. We have a lot of, just like Jennifer, a lot of their equipment at the office, and early on, people didn't even want to leave their home to go get it. So the executives, we all rented a big U-Haul, and we literally organized it and put the ergonomic equipment in these big U-Hauls, and we drove around town delivering all their equipment and leaving it on their doorstep. The employees got such a big kick out of that. And the only thing we were concerned about was like people where they live and their addresses. So what we did, just to disclose that, because we always make sure we're like dotting our I's and crossing our T's, is we sent out an email and just said, listen, we're going to have someone deliver. We wanted to kind of be a surprise that it was an executive showing up between this at these hours, and that we'd be giving your address to them, and everybody was fine with it. We had a great response. And then we gave each employee $250 stipend so that they could set up anything that they wanted. They could have put it towards their wellness. They could get new headphones. They could do whatever. And then a $45 internet monthly stipend as well. So we're trying to make the little things that are the impact. Like Jennifer said, ergonomics was another thing we started seeing increase. Was my eyes are starting to hurt, this is my chair, my back, my this, and we didn't want to see an increase in health issues like that. So again, a lot of activity. We do wellness challenges right now. We're doing a stair climb challenge. So we figure people can do that. If they don't want to go outside, they can do it in their house. They can, run up and down the stairs. For every stair, there's points. And then we actually give back to a philanthropic outreach program. So it's kind of a dual. So what we're doing is we're competing employees, and we have competitive group and we have the recreational group. so both groups of people feel like they can do this. And then it gets down to the, after you do it for a couple weeks, you get down to the top 2 and they compete. And people throw money at them to see who's going to win, and that all goes to philanthropy. So we're trying to have fun. We send videos all the time of like, us, doing push-ups, and then, teams get creative and they do like, it looks like they're pretending like they're running together, but it's like a TikTok or one of these other types of apps. They're being really creative. So just doing as many fun activities you can do to keep people engaged, keep them active, keep them positive. Do lots of, try to get your teams doing activities together, trivia games, happy hour games, anything just to mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically keep them connected.
Really good information, Celeste. Thank you. And it's the perfect segue into the next question for the panelists, which is, and Jen, I think you were the one that said it, right? When it first hit, Zovia was like, grab your laptops and go. Right. And I think that's how most employers were. I know that's how Hub was. They're like, take what you need and go home and we'll figure it out from there. And so now we're in month 8 and the year is drawing, believe it or not, to a close. I mean, I hate to say it, but Halloween is next Saturday, and then it's November, and then we're going to blink and it's going to be Christmas, and then 2020 is going to be in our rear view mirror. So I'm curious to hear from you, as this has drug on and on longer than most people wanted or expected. What are you doing now to support your employees and really help keep them engaged? I know burnout, Carl, you mentioned burnout is very real. And so what are you doing to re-energize, re-engage the employees? Celeste, I think you did a great job talking about that. So Jen, why don't I kind of ping it over to you and Lisa, and then I'll come back to Ryan. And Carl, if you hear anything from the executives you're talking to, weigh in as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say I've been very impressed with the creativity throughout our organization, and so it's really come to light through this. So we've done some really cool things. There's several things by team or site. Virtual trivia Pictionary, a lot of stuff that's free. We have employees who are trained in yoga or meditation. They lead teams through a session. We did a virtual spirit week where teams participated and they share pictures through our intranet and on team Zoom calls. Yesterday was Dress Like Your Boss Day, and that was really fun. And so we have a all company Microsoft team group now. And so people will post pictures and whatnot through that. Now, on the cost side, we did send out actually towards the beginning of this, kind of a work from home kit to all of our employees with a #ZRemote t-shirt, Zovio mask, MyZVO Life, which MyZVO Life is our benefits, our total rewards website. So MyZ Life messenger bag, hand sanitizer, and a webcam cover. So we used our wellness funds for that. So it wasn't necessarily an additional cost to the company, but it was something that we did spend money on. We've gathered vacation pictures, Mother's Day and Father's Day pictures, and first day of school pictures. And our corporate comms team has created beautiful videos with like music, and they'll run it through our intranet. It's been kind of fun just to you feel like you connect with the people from all over the world that you never really meet with if you're in the office. So that I would say is a positive that has come out of this. We did, to replace our on-site health fair, we did a virtual wellness week. We do have virtual fitness classes 3 times a week now that used to be on-site. So since we've made it virtual, all employees throughout the company can attend them. So that's kind of been fun too, and work out with people from all over the country. So a lot of creativity has come up throughout the organization.
Lisa, how about at Ashford?
Yeah, so very similar to Jennifer and Celeste, we have been creative. We also did something early in the COVID process and having an Ashford University branded face covering and getting that mailed out to the employees. But I think the single one thing that really got our employee engagement and our connection through the roof was the weekly town hall by the president. So our executive team, every Wednesday morning, and it's only 30 minutes, it's from 8:30 to 9, it's early in the morning. We have near 100% participation in that week after week, and we're in month 8. And our organization has seen such a value in the engagement, and so many employees in our surveys are saying, I had no idea that, you know, Forbes School of Business was doing this amazing project, right? And so it is, our employees are wanting that, and it's something that our president is committing to do every week, or even maybe every other week, to keep the communication in the community. So what we've seen is people are feeling more of the Ashford family vibe, right? Our all employee events that we would normally do on site have become more department related, right? Or teams related, where teams can pick, do they want to do paint night or trivia night during the day? Our HR team did a spa day. You know, we had a budget and we ordered our face masks and our mud, and we applied our facial products on Zoom with everybody else. And that's what we voted on as a team. It's like, okay, you have $20, so go buy your products. And Amazon shipped it to all of us. And we had a blast doing spa day and looking like fools. And it was amazing, right? So there's a lot of creative things that you can do to get employees engaged, and we have seen it.
Thanks, Lisa. Ryan, spa day for you, a little masking on Zoom with your finance team, or how is Soul doing it differently?
There are a few of us that go out and ride our motorcycles on the weekend, where we never did that before. So there is a little bit different engagement with people throughout the organization. It's similar comments. I think the engagement was the better communication on a very frequent and now at the right level on a going forward basis. There's been a number of internal groups set up as well, so people can interact on their own time with the different chat groups that are set up for the book club, and there's a meditation club, and they have different interactions, and it's been very helpful for some of the new hires. We've hired probably 25 people since the pandemic, and it's been able to help them get engaged as well. So I think another comment was we use the internal intranet data feed as well to have internal competitions very specific to things related to our work and in our environments and things. So people have been able to share things very personal to them that people can vote on and announce the winners during the weekly meeting. So a lot of things like that to keep people up to speed on what's going on in the organization, and then try to have them to interact with one another and comment on one another and work well with one another. So a lot of similar things that everyone else has been doing.
Ryan, you brought something up, and I want to come back to it in a minute, which is new hires. But before we kind of go off on that, Jen, you brought something up a few minutes ago that I think is something that employers maybe are thinking about, maybe not, and that is this whole vacation and PTO. And for companies with defined PTO plans and policies, and very few people are taking vacation because why? Right? And yet we're trying to balance nobody wanting to take vacation because they can't really go anywhere with the fact that people are burning out at a faster and faster rate because they are so overstimulated because of the back-to-back-to-back Zooms. So I'm just curious to hear from each of the panelists how you're handling this whole vacation and vacation time and accrual situation. Celeste, why don't we start with you?
Sure. So yes, you hit it on the nail, Maggie. No one wants to take PTO during this time, and it was a problem. And we looked at the books and the liability and the accrual, and we had a 2.0 cap, so it is pretty high. So we wanted to reduce that to 1.5 for the following year for 2021, and that's pretty standardized as far as across markets, really what your cap should be. And so what we did first of all was kind of along what Ryan was saying, how they have a pool of money. Prior, we were trying to really make sure our hourly employees are the ones that use up their PTO. It's typically our high earners and our salary that keep it going over time and tenured, where they've had so much rollover that there's a lot. So we did create a PTO share where if people, we did a legal thing, it had to be contractual, but if they wanted to share any of their PTO with anyone, they could. And we did have some generous people sharing with those that were needing more hours or time because they had school-age kids or a medical situation that didn't, fall into the books of being on, a medical leave or something. But we're trying to had meetings with our management team to encourage time off just to refresh and regroup and everything else. But we are going to be paying down our PTO this year just to reduce it off the books. And then again, by lowering the cap, that should help a little bit. But I'd say this is probably a challenge that a lot of companies are facing, is if they don't have unlimited PTO and it's not an issue for them, those of us that have built it over time and that have had a high cap, now we're faced with really trying to encourage the employees. They say you can force people to. That's typically not our messaging and the way our company likes to do things. We encourage, but not force. So again, a lot of, messaging. We'd really like you to go and take time to regroup, to refresh. So that's how we're kind of handling it right now.
Thank you. Ryan, is Goal doing anything differently around the PTO accrual issue?
We don't have an accrual issue at the moment, since we had the unlimited PTO program in place, but we've modified it to be, I think we're going to change the name to flexible or something like that, because it just didn't feel unlimited for certain people. But I think the thing that we've been really focused on this year is a little bit different. It used to be an every 3-year thing, but now it's we call it the mandatory 1 week. And so do we force them to take it off? No, but it's when you set your annual goals at the beginning of the year, you also designate the week that you're targeting for that full week off, where we unplug you. Now, certain people don't need to be unplugged. Other people need to be unplugged. And so with the right amount of planning, our chairman and CEO, myself, we can take time off and unplug. It might be challenging, but we can do it. So we've implemented that mandatory 1 week. We feel that's the amount of time that you need to really kind of decompress fully is at least that, just throughout the year in general. The other thing that we do, in addition to that, we implemented a few years ago, is we pay people to go on vacation. So instead of having an accrual that you pay out when people leave, is we now have I call it a sabbatical. And so that 1 week of mandatory time every 3 years, we actually pay you. So you have to go, or you don't have to go, but you don't get the compensation unless you actually unplug and are gone for a week. And it goes up the longer that you're with the company. And so some of the stories that come out of that is we do collect pictures from that, and at the end of the year we do award the best vacation of the year type award as well. But it's a way that instead of putting a liability on the books, we've been really promoting the time off at the right time of the year, at the right time of when a project is in completion, for the right mandatory time, and then we incentivize people to actually leave. And like, if you're wondering about where the funds were going to come from, here's the funds. Now choose to hopefully go use them and go someplace, even if it's a staycation or somewhere far away. At least it can help defray some of those costs to find that. It's a little bit more of a challenge this year, but people have been creative and have been able to leave San Diego County and feel safe about doing so, and getting out of town to get the time that they need to regroup, and they've come back in a pretty good manner. It's been a lot more of a challenge this year, but we've had pretty good success.
Great to hear. Lisa, anything different that Ashford's doing?
Yeah, so we have a vacation cash out policy that was in place prior to COVID. And in order to cash out your hours that you pre-elect to cash out, you must use time. So if you wanted to take 40 hours off, you must have taken 40 hours in order to be eligible for that cash out. So we were very strategic and thoughtful in that. And again, prior to COVID. But for us, we saw the same thing, right? We saw a reduction in sick time use as well as vacation time use. And by July, our president, our university president, started incorporating that in his town halls, is really emphasizing, even though you're not going somewhere and your vacation is to unplug and recharge, he was emphasizing it. And once he started promoting it, then we started seeing people take time off. But I feel that by August, people started feeling comfortable getting in their car and driving to see a loved one. So while they may not be getting into a plane and going to, you know, Hawaii or Cabo or Cancun, they are getting in their car and visiting that friend or family member that they haven't seen in quite some time. So for us, really, it was compassionate messaging from the president in the weekly town halls, really encouraging people to unplug and recharge. And then additionally, the university closes from the week for the week of Christmas to New Year's. So that's kind of an opportunity for them to use their vacation time and reduce that liability as well.
Yeah, a forced shutdown. That's good as well. Carl, I see you nodding, and I'd be very curious to hear your perspective on what you're hearing and seeing from a burnout and how the executives you're working with are feeling about taking vacation time themselves or encouraging their employees to do the same.
Well, I've been encouraging them to have more compassion for themselves. And, you know, the C-suite is a very tough place to be right now. When this all started, as everyone said, we didn't know how long it was going to last. And, you know, senior execs can be frightened also about the future. And so helping them have more compassion for themselves was a first step. And then to realize that they are different than most of their employees. What I mean by that is that I have execs that have 2, 3 homes, whereas they have people that live in studio apartments, and trying to get them to understand and empathize with that. So one of the interesting things that I've had some of the senior execs do is to reach down. I mean, this is one of the great things about the internet and about Zoom and whatever, is that, you know, to have group meetings with lower level employees, just to say hi, you know, which you used to be able to do somewhat by walking through the halls. But, you know, executives don't realize how actually important they are in the psyches of their employees, which means that a little bit goes a long ways. Just saying hello or asking how you're doing and empathizing with people and saying, you know, being compassionate about what's going on and recognizing we don't have answers, but we're optimistic about the future if we keep going in the right direction. But conveying that kind of message has been very important.
Agreed, and thank you for that. I appreciate it. So I want to shift the focus a little bit. We've been pretty short-term, immediate focused. I want to start looking out across the horizon a little bit more, and curious to hear what long-term positive consequences you think your organization, your employees have kind of gained from this whole experience. And Jen, why don't I start with you? And then I do want to make sure we talk with you also about the whole onboarding and how onboarding is different and how you do that. But let's start with long-term positive consequences.
Yeah, I think our biggest one is just that we've shown that we can do it, right? Our CEO wasn't always, he was very skeptical that certain positions could do this. And I think we've proven we can, which opens up the talent pool so we can hire from anywhere in the country. And so we're finding the best candidate for the job versus the best candidate in that specific city for the job. So that, I think, has been the biggest positive long-term consequence that we've had out of this.
Great. Lisa, how about at Ashford?
Yeah, I'll echo the same thing. Long-term wise, we've already retained talent with our headquarters being in San Diego and San Diego being a large military town. We have our fair share of military spouses. And as their military service member is relocated and deployed to another part of the country or another part of the world, we've been able to retain that talent to where they would normally resign and we would be backfilling that role. So I've been impressed at how many requests we've had of, hey, my employee needs to move. We want to keep them. They're a great employee, even in entry-level hourly workers. So that has been successful. And then also on the horizon, we are considering expanding our hybrid roles. So reducing our physical footprint in our building in the sense of, how much square footage do we need? Or can our employees really work from home 2 to 3 days a week and share cubes, right? And if we are office sharing, what would they need to feel comfortable about that? Is that they each have their own wireless headset? What does that look like? So we are currently in the process of really redefining how much physical building space do we really need to be successful, and what do we need to do if we are office sharing to have those employees feel safe in the days that they do come to work.
Great, thank you, Lisa. Ryan?
I'm going to do another poll real quick because we have 3 more left. We can just jump in and shoot another poll and then we can go back.
Sure.
Okay. So this next one is in regards to what you're thinking about with your workforce. Will they be permanently working remote post-COVID? So what percentage, I should say? So less than 25%, less than 50%, less than 70%, 75%, or 100%. So post-COVID, thinking about your workforce, how do you see them working remotely? So give it a few more seconds to see what everybody's thinking. Should be interesting. So it looks like nobody is going to be at 100% remote. 45% will have less than 75% working remotely. 18% will have less than 50% working remotely. And 36% say they'll have less than 25% working remotely. So it's interesting.
Very, thank you, Stacy. Ryan, long-term positive impact at goal?
I would say the biggest impact is employee engagement and satisfaction, and I think part of that comes from we were already had good success scores on being flexible, but now we're being super successful. And I think the biggest thing is our families and our significant others and people are more happy because they're able to spend more time and be more present with their spouses, their families, their significant others, their friends, whatever it might be, because we haven't required them to come in the office. Before they would still need to come to the office, but we'd be flexible, but they were rushing here and they're rushing there. Now they're not rushing. We're much more flexible. We don't set up internal meetings before 9 and we don't set up internal meetings past 5. There's a block company-wide from 12 to 1. It's a forced period of time where we're not going to set something up from a company-sponsored time. You work with your schedule, and we'll figure it out. So I think that employee satisfaction is going to be just from the flexibility is going to be great there. The other stuff is more tangible. Some of our cost structures are just going to change. Our footprint will change in certain cities. The commute times is going to be reduced. Travel costs. We had a huge travel budget. It'll come back, but not to the level that it was because we found other ways to be effective in working with clients and customers in business development and sales. So I think we'll have benefits there. And I think a lot of that then will kind of come back to happier employer because they're not going to be traveling as much or gone as much.
Right, well said. Celeste, how about at ESET, long-term positive impact?
So I think that really covered all of the things that I would have added to it. I think the only other thing is that we probably reallocate a lot of the things that we've been doing for our employees. So for instance, we had massage therapists come in monthly for the employees. You know, we built a gym. You know, we have a micro market where people can go and get their food, and we give them a monthly stipend. And some of these things, like, they're great and they're wonderful, but again, from the positive to the negative, because I know you gave me the question also for negative, is reallocating those funds, because there's going to be a level of like, don't touch me. I don't want, you know, your hands on me. Now with massages. On the gym thing, some people will also be very heightened about the sanitary kind of condition of the gym, and, you know, someone used it and everything else. So again, we're looking at everything from the business. You know, we really need all these floors. I mean, we have to look into our lease, which is another 3 years out. We did, luckily, one floor we got to sublease during this time, which was really fantastic. But we're really trying to figure out all these creative things so that we can reduce those costs and put those costs back into something that makes more sense for our employees. So hopefully that answers that, but I thought everyone else, pretty much what like Ryan, Lisa, and Jen said were exactly some of the same things that we're doing and are faced with. So.
Great. And Celeste, thanks for the segue into, you know, we are definitely balancing the positives with the negatives. And Carl, I'd love for you to start out with what you personally anticipate and what you're hearing from the executives that you're working with, as far as what are some of the longer term, less positive or negative consequences as a result of the COVID pandemic and the work from home.
Well, I think the major one is that, unlike what I'm hearing here, a lot of the companies are expanding their workday. And so the burnout problem, people are just working longer. And so the executives have to be very vigilant about not letting that happen. Back-to-back meetings are just crazy. I can't tell you how often I love the idea that Ryan said about blocking out 1 hour a day, no meetings at all, company-wide. That's great. So that's a big one. The other part that's problematic is social isolation for young people and single people. You know, when you have a family, it's one thing, but when you're by yourself, you know, living in a studio apartment and you're working from home and that's all you see, it's the equivalent of being in a cell. And so trying to mitigate that and helping people out of that is going to be a long-term issue.
Agreed. Ryan, long-term negative consequences as a result of this?
The right collaboration, the right cross-functional team environment has taken a hit. I'd say the biggest thing that's been impactful in the short term is the drive-by. There's so much I can accomplish in 30 minutes drive-by through the office by just saying hi to people or asking a question that just pops up. Now I've got to schedule time, or I call them and hope that they're not in another meeting. So I think the collaboration and cross-functional teams, we're being effective, but we're not as effective as we were before, because it was much easier to pull someone in when you're present. So finding the right balance on a going forward basis when we're able to go back to the office will be very critical there. We haven't quite nailed it down yet. We're doing good, not great, on ensuring that everyone's involved. That needs to be, because you're trying to track people down virtually instead of hollering across a row of cubes. So.
Right. Jen, one of the things that hasn't come up, but I think is absolutely a challenge for employers, is how do you onboard a new hire remotely? Right? So why don't you talk a little bit about what Zovio is doing there? I think it's really impressive.
Yeah, it was, I will admit, I was very impressed with our team for being able to transition so quickly, and it was a challenge. We had a whole committee about it since we were onboarding so many people. So day one, we have a drive-through equipment pickup at all of our locations. So our IT department has done a great job at all of our locations to set up a socially distanced. They literally drive up, pop their trunk, kind of like if you go and pick up something at Ulta or someplace like that. Pop your trunk, everybody has masks on. They dump all of their equipment that they need in their trunk, close it, and the employee drives off and goes home with their packet and step-by-step instructions with pictures on how to set up their equipment at home. So they did a great job with that. We give them 2 monitors, keyboard, a mouse, noise canceling headset, and then their all the power cords and stuff that they need, their connectors. So that was very, very positive. And then on our L&D side, they were able to really transition. We have a very robust new hire experience. It's a 2-week training, and they were able to transition that to online, utilizing all the capabilities of Zoom and the breakout rooms, and really keep it still interactive, because that's part of the big key, right? You like connect with these new employees and your peers and your new hire group, and you're missing that interaction. So they were able to really keep them engaged. Now on the flip side, part of the problem is since they started remote and they can work remote, and we did such a good job engaging them in the beginning, they don't want to come back in the office. So now we're having the opposite problem of how are we going to get these people back in the office once we open again? So that's the next challenge.
Well, and Jen, I agree. I think that is a challenge that every employer needs to be thinking through and planning for. I have clients who can't get back to the office fast enough. The CEOs are I want my employees back up, right, to others. And so I'm curious to hear from each of you what your plan is for mandatory back on site, if that's ever going to be a thing. Ryan? Oh, yeah, Jen, go ahead.
No, I was just saying we're experiencing it right now. So I have real life example to give. Our CEO has actually made the decision November 2nd, our Chandler office is opened and everybody will be back regardless. Now, the only exception that we're making is if they have a serious health condition themselves that puts them at high risk around being other people, or they live with somebody that has a serious health condition that would put them at high risk. And the only way that those are going to be approved is through an accommodation through my team. So I've taken those on. I've worked through over 100 tickets in the last week, trying to deal with that. But right now we only have 10 approved people. We have received a lot of requests to work from home because of daycare, because their kids aren't in school, and those we're just sending to their managers to accommodate. And it seems to be working, but we'll see how November 2nd goes.
Good luck and keep us posted. Anybody else have a strong approach or policy already kind of in mind that you're planning to roll out? And then Carl, I'd love to get your perspective on the psychological impact of everybody's back, now.
Yeah, I will say on the Ashford side, we have the opposite, right? Our leadership is not in a hurry to get people back in the office. They are enjoying the productivity and how well everything is working remotely. We've seen a reduction in employee relation complaints, right? We're in a political election year, right? 4 years ago, when we were having election, employee relations would see continued complaints, and we're not seeing that this year. So our organization is really looking at 2021, maybe even as late as March of 2021, and definitely doing it in phases, right? Opening it for volunteers and assessing each person case by case, and can they do it from home, and allowing people to request permanent work from home or only come in the office 1 day, 2 days, 3 days a week.
Yeah, that's kind of the same thing that Lisa's doing, we're doing. And because we keep setting our time frame, like we send out weekly letters on just kind of updates all the time, and then we do the town hall meetings. And so we're really communicating with the employees about what it's going to look like when we're going to come back. Right now we have scheduled January 15th, but we're in no hurry as well, as much as like with childcare situations and schools and things. And so kind of following what's happening in California specifically, because most of our employees are here, when those schools will be open and kids can go. And then we've been doing surveys on, how many people would feel comfortable coming back now, how many people, excited to come back, and we're getting like a mixed bag. So just like Lisa suggested, we're doing the volunteer first, and then it will kind of work its way down as we manage those things. But we definitely have things to take in consideration with pre-existing conditions and living situations and things. So we're in no hurry to go back. It's working really well. And so for us, we're just like watching each, basically every day we get in a group and talk about these things. And what does it look like? With schools is like one of the #1 things we talk about. So that's step by step.
Thanks, Celeste. So something came up, and Carl, I'll come back to you in a minute, but something came up that we've got a poll question about that I want to dive into, and that is employees who are now working remote, who no longer have to live in San Diego or even in California to commute into an office job. And a lot of companies are seeing employees moving out of the state of California. I'm curious to hear how many of the attendees today are actually having that experience with their employees. We'll give it a couple of minutes, and then I'd like to hear from the panelists how you're handling that. How do you handle compensation and things like that? All right, so 56, it's pretty evenly split. Interesting, 56% are seeing employees looking to permanently relocate outside of California, and 44% aren't. So back to our panelists, I'm curious to hear how many of you are dealing with this situation, and how are you handling it from a being supportive, and do you adjust compensation because you were paying California, San Diego wages because people had to pay to live here and it's an expensive place to live, and now they want to move to Idaho and maybe not as expensive. So Lisa, I think that was you that raised your hand. Do you want to start?
It was, yes. And so we have exactly seen this. One of the beauties is our retention rate has gone through the roof, meaning we are retaining our employees, and our turnover rate has gone down as a result of us being flexible and retaining these employees. We already have a compensation structure based on the physical locations of where we are, as well as a national compensation structure. We hire adjunct faculty across all 50 states. What is new to us is as they move, and all of them have been lower cost of living areas, Idaho being one, Arizona, Utah, they've been going to lower cost of living areas. We haven't had a compensation philosophy around what do we do with the compensation? Do we maintain the San Diego rate when they go to Idaho, or do we adjust them down for that geographical factor? And interesting that this question is coming up because we are having those conversations now. Everybody in the last 8 months that has moved has been able to enjoy their current salary in their new geographical location, but we're seeing this as a trend, and it's no longer a onesie twosie. It's like, oh boy, we need to think through this. And some of them are of the school of thought of allowing them to keep it, but they would have the new pay band and new max on the pay grade and allowing them to stay there. The other side is, oh boy, year 2, 3, 4, 5, this could get messy. This could create pay compression and could get a little ugly. So again, we are at the beginning stages of those conversations, but we are seeing that indeed.
Celeste, I see you nodding your head. How is ESET tackling this?
Yeah, so same thing as everything that Lisa said, I 100% support. That's what we're doing. But we actually have had quite a few employees move out of California, believe it or not. And if they haven't moved out of California, they're at least moving, a little further, like in a little bit. I had employees in like downtown move to like Oceanside and other areas that maybe it would have taken them 45 minutes to an hour to drive to work, but they're like, now I can actually live in an area that I really want to versus where I needed to because of the remote drive time. So we started seeing really an uptick, but I have had just in the past 6 weeks, I've had 5 employees move remote. based on cost of living. And so what we're doing is same thing, but we use Radford, and we really look at each location and what the cost is, for an employee. And similar to what Lisa's doing, instead of reducing them right away, we're capping. So we usually do a pay evaluation twice a year, and we also do merit every February. So that's the time, so for pay compression and everything, where we can, if they're in a lower cost of living and everything else, we can kind of hold that so that it just doesn't keep going up. And then people that actually live in that area are paid different, different pay. So we want to keep the equity as even as we can. But yes, those are the conversations we're starting to have as well, as more and more employees decide to move remote.
I think more and more employers are going to begin having them. Before we hit pause and go to our last polling question and then open it up to the audience for questions, Carl, I want to get your perspective on the emotional impact of a leader saying, okay, guys, it's time to come back. Like, everybody needs to come back. So do you want to just take a couple of minutes and help us understand the psychological impact of that, and how organizations can communicate effectively and well, but protect the psyche of their employees in the process?
Well, that's a tough one. And the reason why is because I'm kind of in the camp of that we need to be a little more flexible now. And that's the idea that I think a hybrid approach is probably the way of the future. So if an employer is going to say, everyone, 100% of you must come back, man, I think they're going to start seeing people say, I want to go work for someone else, because this is not maybe a safe place. So I think CEOs have to think twice about 100% compliance. I don't think there's an easy way out.
I don't disagree. Thank you. So before we open it up to the audience for questions, we have another question that is very timely, but not at all related to COVID. So this is a polling question for the audience. Stacy, I'll turn it over to you.
Sounds good. Launch that right now. So this one is, are you making November 3rd a holiday or granting time off for your employees to a vote? So your options are no, yes, granting time off, or your third choice is yes, making 11/3 a holiday. So looking at November 3rd, what are you thinking about in terms for your employees and getting out there to vote? So they're coming in now. This should be interesting. So it looks like 43% say no, they're not making it a holiday, but 57% are granting time off to go vote. And nobody's making it a holiday for their employees.
Interesting. Thank you. I just thought that would be interesting to see what employers were doing. And while I could go on and on and on with my list of questions, first, I just want to thank the entire panel for sharing your experiences, your struggles, your perspectives, etc. And I am sure that at least a couple of people in the audience may have some questions for the panel. So I'm going to stop talking and open it up to people who would like to email questions in, and then I'm happy to pose those questions to the panel. Or if there's one particular person you'd like to hear from, let me know that as well.
Okay. Looking at the question box right now, not a whole lot coming in, but I think you guys covered things pretty thoroughly. I think one question that I know it came up was probably for Jennifer, but with your offices opening up, I think you said in Arizona, is there a specific, are you temperature checking? Like, what is there a plan there that you're putting in, and how did you come up with that?
Yeah, so we've been temperature checking. So we've allowed employees to voluntarily come back for a while. And we have a temperature checking as they enter. We have 2 entrances. So as they enter, that's the first thing they have to do is have their temperature scan. It's a hands-free, it's faster than swiping your badge to get that scanned. And then we have our cleaning crew doing cleanings every, I think they come through every hour, and then deep cleaning every night. Our gym is only 3 people allowed at a time, and only for 45 minutes to allow 15 minutes of cleaning after every time that they leave, because we can be socially distanced in the gym with 3 people. Our cafe is open only for takeout, so they're not, like, the salad bars are closed and all of that, but they're preparing pre-cooked meals that people can kind of come and do grab and go. And then we call it Desert Brew, which is basically like our Starbucks in the office, is open. Masks have to be worn entering and exiting anytime they're up in a public area, but they do not need to be worn if they're sitting at their desk and are more than 6 feet away from someone else. All of our desks are 8 feet apart, but we are putting people at every other seat anyway, just to further distance them. So, and then they put the 6 feet little stickers everywhere, like lining up to the Biz Hub or to the bathrooms, things like that. So people know, like, stand here and be 6 feet apart. So they've taken a lot of precautions, I will say, but we'll see how, we have a lot of younger employees that don't always follow the rules.
Great. Maggie, you know what? I don't see a lot of questions coming in, but I love to do what we call the lightning round. If you can have each person just give, we covered so much today, but what would be your 1 or 2 pieces of advice that when they leave today and thinking about their employees and working remotely, that I'd love to hear what each of the panelists would give as a takeaway?
I would say real quickly, ask your employees what they need. It's not always what we think. Ask them what they need.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's interesting that the vendor support of the tutoring and the online resources was more received than babysitter support. So sometimes you don't always know what your employees want until you do that survey. Yeah. For me, I would say think out of the box. You would be surprised what a little bit of flexibility will go to the employees and what kind of goodwill and engagement comes out of that. And really consider that weekly town hall meeting. And our employees are getting to know our president like they've never seen before. And they are seeing that our executives are just like them. They have kids, they have the same challenges, and they are willing to be vulnerable and compassionate for 30 minutes a week. And it is going very far with our population.
Communicate. Go ahead, Ryan.
Okay. For us, it's our cultural committee. Don't get in the echo chamber thinking the executive team has the answers, or even HR for that matter. The culture committee is the ones that they're gonna get the real results from everyone within the organization, because they're part of the fabric of the company. So they're the ones that bring in the ideas that we end up implementing.
Yep. And I was just going to say, communicate, listen, and make sure you have touch points. So do things like everyone's kind of mentioned here. Presidents send letters out, town halls, managers do group fun things, trivia. And the last we're doing is we're sending out packages. So every month, September, October, November, December, we're sending out a package with something fun for the employees to do, whether it's with their family or anything like getting outdoors equipment or game, popcorn popper, just really letting them know you're there and they see it, they feel it, and over communicate. I really feel like.
Maggie, we did.
Okay, go ahead, Stacy.
2 minutes left. This is a good one. How are you measuring productivity? I've not heard any of you say that some employees have slacked off. So does anybody have thoughts on that in their last 2 minutes here?
Well, we're very numbers based in what we do. So we get our productivity by the minute. So it's, yeah, we have that kind of down. For our corporate staff, it's a little bit harder to do, but it's more measured on meeting project deadlines, that kind of stuff. But for majority of our organization, we have systems in place that we've had pre-COVID that measure our productivity, and it has been higher than it's ever been.
Okay, great. And then Well, I know we're pretty much at the end of our deadline, and I want to always like to end on time, but I just wanted to let you know, thank you so much to Ryan, to Lisa, Celeste, Carl, Jennifer, and a big thank you to Maggie for moderating and bringing this all together. It was so
Absolutely.
much information. We will get the recording out because there may be some things you want to go back and look at. I'll send a follow-up email just so you know too. Up next is our CFO Masterclass, which normally we have to travel to Boston for. So the one benefit this year for those of us on the West Coast is you can attend virtually, and it is free to our premium members. The CFO of Twitter is going to be speaking, along with 23andMe, the Peloton CFO. So I will send that out, information on that out in the email as well, but that's what we're doing in November, which I think is going to be a lot of fun. So I just wanted to make sure and point that out. And just one last thank you to our sponsors. Thank you to our speakers today. You guys were amazing. And with that, that concludes our presentation. We hope you have a great rest of the day.
Thank you, Stacy.
Bye.
Bye.